friends, and welcome back to this Fretted Friday. And lots of you might be asking, well, there wasn't a Tone Tuesday this week, and that's a very good reason. I intentionally didn't release a video because I wanted my buddy Lewis Trower from LT Custom Guitars, Pioneer guitar that I demoed on Friday, to keep on getting views. I really like to support him as much as I can, and I know what YouTube will do if I put up another video. They would totally stop promoting the Pioneer one. So that's why I didn't put up a video on Tuesday. Thanks for your patience and understanding. Today though, we are going to look at a guitar that I think Angus would love. Right, before we start today, I just want to say a big hey to Mark Dalton, my friend, and his nephew very recently came into a little bit of money and very, very kindly bought him a Line 6 4x12 to go with his Line 6 V20. Now, he wanted me to mention his nephew Matthew and say well done, mate, and that also, Matt, you're a great player. So a little message there for Mark Dalton. Now today we're going to do something rather different because YouTube have added a new feature to put chapters into videos. So I decided to turn this one into quite a long form video today, but there's ways that you can jump around using chapters to skip to the bits you want. So there is this little intro. We're also going to change the strings. I'm going to show you changing the strings on this. I'm going to do a complete setup because I changed the gauge of strings on this. Then we're going to look at some tones through the usual, the little pocket pod. We're going to talk about what's changed on this model because my buddy Ken McNair asked about the changes that have been made and how he could get one just like mine. And actually, this was bought back on the 2nd of September 2015. I'll leave a link to that in the description down below. But now it seems that this is very much changed, and we're going to talk about how that's changed and why. Then finally, I've recorded a track on this and a little bit of a solo, but I'm also going to give you a link in the description down below to a WAV file that is the backing track to the piece that I've written for today. So all of that is going to be quite a long video today, but you can skip around using the new YouTube chapters feature. So without further ado, let's dive in and let's change up the gauge of strings on this. Okay, so let's get on with doing the job. Let's get the strings off this first of all. Some people ask, why don't I cut the strings off? Is it because I'm worried about the sudden change in tension on the neck? No, not at all. It's just force of habit. I've always taken the strings off by loosening them and pulling them out. Okie dokie. So we've got a big choice ahead of us today, what gauge of strings we're going to put on this. I've been looking at all of the Ernie balls. So we snapped the top E string on this, and so I'm going to check out the saddle while we're at it, just to make sure that this saddle isn't too sharp, although it actually broke at the ball end and not across the saddle, so I don't think that's so much of a problem with this one. Okay, so there we go, and we can take the bridge off very carefully, not scratching the body, and we'll take, these are the original Harley Benton strings, would you believe? I know, it's difficult to believe, but they've been on there for 4 years. It's crazy. Never before have I left a guitar with the same strings on quite for so long, but this really did manage to stay playable. And these strings, actually, they're not that dirty. So perhaps I wasn't playing this guitar as much as I thought I was. But either way, she's getting some new strings today, and she's going to get a setup, and we're going to make her play like a dream. So we get rid of those. Now I've got a choice for what to put on these, ranging from 9.5s, the Ernie Ball 9.5s, to 10.5s and 12s. Am I going to be brave enough to put a set of 12s on this? I don't think it needs it. I think what we're going to do is we're going to go plumb right in the middle, and I'm going to go for the Ernie Ball 10.5s. So we'll just clean all this out and give it a really nice polish through the middle here where the strings are, where we can never normally get to. We're going to need to change and do a proper setup on this today, because I'm pretty sure the strings that came off this are a set of 9s. So we're going to be putting a little bit of extra tension on the neck. See, this hasn't come off. I haven't taken this plastic off since I had it. Oh, that's so satisfying. There's a bit of wear down here by the cowboy cords. I don't think there's any issues with this. Let's just quickly get our fret rocker out and have a little... No rocking on any of those frets. They're all good. While we've got the strings off, also, I'm just going to take off the truss rod cover, because that can sometimes be a devil to get to when the strings are on. Right, so now we have everything nice and cleaned up, we can get on with stringing this guitar. Now, I am going to top wrap, and why? I like top wrapping. I know that there are some people who say that it doesn't put enough tension on the strings, and for me it's nothing to do with the tension on the strings. The reason I top wrap is because I like the additional contact that the string gets with the top part of the stop tail. Now, as you can see, this one's nice and clean because I haven't top wrapped yet, but you do end up with little marks, little grooves. But personally, I feel that this then, with the extra contact with the strings, sends more resonance through into the body of the guitar. So we're going to top wrap. So just a little bit of sandpaper, probably 2000 grit, just going through. Actually, the wound string don't feel too bad. Just a little bit in there, and a little bit in there. There we go, and a little bit in there, just to take off any burrs that might be in the way. And while I've got that out, let's do the other thing. Let's pop a little bit of Vaseline in each of these saddles as well. Just, again, just to lubricate it and to ensure that these strings can move freely. While we do the same at the nut, we're just going to pop a bit of lubrication in each of these nut slots. Okay, we'll give these... Oh, where's my cloth? I'm making a terrible mess on this guitar again, and there's a bit under the strings already. Right, let's give these another little bit of a stretch now that we've taken it to close to pitch. So we're pretty close there. So because I've changed the strings, it's really important that we do a setup, because obviously a different gauge, especially going up a gauge and a half, is going to put a lot more tension on the neck, and so we need to adjust everything. We need to use Ron Thorne's T.R.A.I.N. Tune, rod for relief, action, intonation, and then noodle around. So we'll go and have a look at that now. So let's have a look and see what our action is like. Oh wow, that's pretty high, as I expected, due to the change in the gauge of strings. Now, quick rule of thumb, I've done this many times. Let's see what the relief in the neck is like. And to do that, you fret the first and last, and there should be a ring. You should be able to... Yeah, see, now the relief is still fine on this guitar, so we know that we don't need to mess about with the truss rod, but the action is really high, and we can do something about that. And we do that before we do the intonation. So if you remember rightly, what I got from Ron Thorne, from the Master Builder at Fender, was T.R.A.I.N. You start with tuning, then the R is rod, so we've just checked that the relief is right and that the rod doesn't need adjusting. A is the action, and that's what we'll set next. So we're going to try and lower the action a little bit. I don't know if you can see that, hopefully you can see that. That's going down, and we will just take that down a little further. See how low we can get that. That's pretty good on the treble side. That looks pretty cool. I reckon we've got that down to, we could probably go a little further. Let's just wind it down actually that's pretty much as far down as it'll go. Yep. And then we'll also take the bass side down. And I'm pretty sure that this will take a fair... Oh, there we go. We wait until we get a little bit of buzz. No, I've gone down too low on that. Or is that touching? Aha! That's the other thing that you've got to watch out for. When you lower the action, obviously you want to wind your pickups out of the way, because that could be what things are buzzing on. Okay, so there we go. That is very low action. Now look, on this side we've probably got 1 mil, and on the bass side we've got, I would say, 1.2 mil, really close down to 1 mil. It's a bit lower than I generally like the action, but when you've got a slightly bigger gauge, a higher gauge of strings on, you can afford, because you've got that bit of extra tension, you can actually lower that action a little bit. So that's the action. Cool. And next thing that we try, T.R.A.I.N. We've done the tuning, we've done the rod, we've done the action. The I is intonation. Now, little trick for intonation is to go onto your rhythm or your neck pickup and volume up full, tone down to about half, and you get a much clearer and cleaner signal. So we're going to check with the harmonic first. And then the fretted note. So we can see that's flat, which means that this is very slightly longer than we need it to be. So what we need to do is we just need to adjust in here. Okay, intonation on the E, bottom E is fine. I will do the others, and now you've seen what to do. Basically, intonation is that the length from the nut to the saddle should be exactly twice what the nut to the 12th fret and the 12th fret to the saddle is. That 12th fret should be exactly in the middle. So if when you fret out like this, the note is flat as it was on this, that means that this length is too long, because the longer the string, the lower the note. So very simply, I've just moved that this way in order to get the intonation right. So the intonation's now absolutely spot on with that E. I won't bore you with the rest, I'll go and do that now. Right, so I hope you enjoyed that little setup, and that you can now see exactly how you can achieve the same results on any guitar of yours. And this is now, with it overwrapped, it's really singing out, and it's really nicely set up as well. The action is actually lower than I like it. It's very low. I would say it's a hair under a millimetre. So now that it's all set up, let's go and play it through the usual, the pocket pod. Okay, so now we've got the strings changed and all of our setup done. The next thing to do, because we had to fiddle about with the height of the pickups to avoid being on the strings, is we're going to use a clean classic tone, and I'm going to take all the effects and all the delay and everything off of that, and we're just going to see how the clean sounds on each pickup. So this is the bridge. And this is the neck. Now you can probably hear there that the neck pickup sounds a lot louder and a lot thicker than the bridge pickup. So I actually think the neck can go just a little further down, so we're going to make that adjustment, just a couple of turns down on that. But also I think what we want to do is just have a couple of turns up. Whoops, I went the wrong way on that. Just a couple of turns up on the bridge pickup, and then we'll try it again. Yeah, the neck's fine now, but I still think that that bridge can come up just a little touch more. And looking at the heights, yeah, definitely a little bit low. These pickups are lovely. I'm not sure if they're Roswell or whether these were Wilkinsons. So let's try that again. Start with the neck. I think they can come up with just a touch more as well. Let's just give it another half a wind, because it's not distorting. That sounds absolutely great now. So what we've done is we've adjusted the pickup height again to suit where we've now got the action on the strings. So that's the complete setup, and now we can do a demo of the sounds of this SG Harley Benton. So let's have a little listen. I'm going to stick a little bit of chorus on and just a little bit of delay as well, and we'll see what the clean tones are like first. Quite a nice little tone, and really we know that these are a rock and roll guitar, so we want to hear what the crunch is like. So we're going to quickly pop along to the crunch tones, and we're going to go to my favourite, which is the boutique tone. think you'll agree that that's a real rock and roll crunchy tone. Angus would love it. Let's take a bit of the delay and the effect off it. Real cool. Let's take it up a stage and go to the heavy tones, and I think it's the modern and delay that I've been using. So there you have it. That's the tones. Well, I hope you enjoyed the tones of this SG guitar, this SG style guitar. And that brings me on to the biggest problem that we face, because I've been in touch with my buddy Bene at Harley Benton and asked him the question that Ken McNair asked me, because if you compare this model, which was bought back in 2015, with the current model, there seems to be quite a lot of differences. Most notably, this top horn seems to be a lot longer and the back seems to be squashed in. So rather than looking almost an identical copy, of the Gibson SG, which this one really looks like, it's now a little bit squashed, and some people are not particularly keen on the new shape. Furthermore, rather than having a separate volume and tone for each of the pickups, there's now just a master volume and a master tone, only 2 knobs on the new guitar, which again cuts down on the options in terms of being able to maybe mix in the middle position, and it just doesn't look like the Gibson guitar. So I contacted my buddy Benet, as I said, and I asked him why it was that this had changed, and was it to do with Gibson and trademarks. Now, he was quite coy in his response, saying he was laughing out loud, LOL, isn't it funny how these things change in order not to infringe on trademarks. Now, for me, that's pretty much saying that Harley Benton had to change this model and this shape in order to move a little bit further away from the Gibson SG shape. And given that, I'm really glad that I managed to get this model before they changed to the new shape. Now, I'm sure you'll probably be able to find some second-hand versions of this around in this exact shape and style that's a lot closer to the Gibson. And also, although it's still got the new body shape, I have managed to find, and will link below, to a model that does have a separate volume and tone for each of the pickups. So you're that little bit closer in terms of tone and selection choices, and that'll be linked down below. So there you go, it is. They were changing the shape and the style in order to avoid, I guess, being sued by Gibson. Anyway, I really hope you've enjoyed this video today. As promised, I did record a complete track with this guitar, and we'll go and have a quick listen to that now. again, I really hope that you've enjoyed that track, and I had a lot of fun playing it, and this guitar really sings out, and I love the plexi tones with this classic Gibson style SG shape, and I'm really pleased with this guitar. It's one that I play really frequently, and I will play more and more now that I've set it up. And actually, funny thing is, I haven't found the 10.5s, the Ernie Ball 10.5s, any more difficult to bend than I find my 9-gauge strings. So I may well stick with these going forward. As promised, I've also put a backing track link, a WAV file link, in the description down below for that track that you just heard with just the backing track. And I'm also going to play it for you now to finish up this video with lots of pictures of this guitar now that it's been set up and it's been cleaned up and it's playing beautifully. I really hope you've enjoyed this Fretted Friday, folks. I'll be back really soon with the best content I can, and in the meantime, stay happy, stay safe, wash your hands, have a great weekend, and most of all, take good care.